method to keep the country relatively stable, easy to do while clans are weakly armed. Still, with independence in 1960, Somalis had reason to rejoice and be proud. Theirs is a rich culture with so extraordinary a fascination with poetry, it's been called the nation of poets. But if poetry defines Somalia's soul, position has ruled its destiny. In the Horn of Northeast Africa, Somalia has been doomed to be one of the most strategic places on earth. In time of colonies and Cold War, a key garrison dominating the sea lanes to the Red Sea and Suez, and poised close to the oil fields of the Persian Gulf. For superpowers, an immense prize to be bought at any price. In 1969, Somalia's fragile democracy was overthrown by General Siad Barre, who soon declared a socialist state, backed by Soviet arms and expertise.
The Soviets, though, were still anxious to consolidate their gains, and wary of ongoing Western construction projects, the Americans in Ethiopia and a growing Chinese influence signed a treaty of friendship and cooperation with Barre in 1974. Over the next 3 years, they sent an estimated $345 million in military support alone. The former colonialism was now replaced by a superpower domination. One of the biggest problems Somalia faced with clan ties, he appointed people on merit, not clan affiliation. It was a refreshing break with tradition, but it would not last. Barre, then gaining aid by cleverly setting superpower against superpower, was trying to turn Somalia into a modern state. While the Russians provided arms and advisors, Chinese money and loaned workers built roads into the interior and along the coast, linking towns that had never before been easily accessible, going very much Siad Barre's way. In 1974, he became chairman of the Organization of African Unity, hosting meetings of African heads of states. Having traditionally close ties with Arabia, it was no surprise when he took Somalia into the Arab League. Barre's prestige and international reputation soared. Even in the West, he was admired as a pragmatist, influenced by the Soviets, but not engulfed by them. In the Ogaden, he was an anti-colonialist. Many who hadn't supported the coup were detained, including then-Colonel Mohammed Farah Aidid, who had always distrusted Barre.
General Aidid and Siad Barre were in the army together. And even before he came to power, they were not on good terms. When he came to power, the first instructions he gave was that Aidid should be appointed a consular in the Somali embassy in Khartoum. That was 2 weeks after Siad Barre came to power. General Aidid refused. And within 2 weeks, again, he was put in jail. And he remained in jail for 6 years.
Based on the Isaac clan, waged a guerrilla war in the north. Barre found himself fighting his own people. A complex character, Barre was also prepared to give people a second chance. He had released Aidid after 6 years' imprisonment. Resentment at his imprisonment reinforced Aidid's original dislike of Barre. A desire for revenge became increasingly apparent. Strategically situated on the Horn of Africa, it was being wooed by the Soviet Union, China, and the USA. Former President Siad Barre nearly brought peace and prosperity to Somalia. But through bad mistakes, conflicting ideologies, and the importing of vast amounts of military hardware, his legacy is devastation. This is Ali Mahdi in charge only of the north of the divided capital, Mogadishu, with his faction, the Manifesto Group. He is not recognized outside this area, having been appointed interim president by a supposedly unconstitutional coalition in Djibouti during a power vacuum in the civil war. Strangely, his Manifesto Group proclaims to be part of the United Somali Congress, the leader of which he's primarily in bloody contention with. General Mohammed Farah Aidid. He controls the southern part of the city, Mogadishu. Funded by the then ruler of neighbouring Ethiopia, he couldn't completely overthrow President Siad Barre, Ali Mahdi, or the northern clans. For a long period, he held relief agencies and the United Nations in thrall. These three hostile men have caused Somalia's descent into anarchy, devastation and starvation. However, France took the northwest around Djibouti, Britain the north, and the Italians the south, by far the biggest and most productive part. So southern Somalis learnt Italian, and Italian commercial, legal and political practices, and in the north they learnt English and adopted British practices. A Somali's first loyalty is to his sub-clan, then his clan, the basis of Somali culture, and these allegiances run deep. Minor disputes, once settled with clubs and spears, would assume horrific proportions with the introduction of modern automatic weapons. To the west, the nominally Christian Ethiopian Empire also had its eyes on Somaliland. They took over the Ogaden and Haud regions, which the Somalis considered their own. The dispute over these regions angered and intimidated future President Siad Barre. It would ultimately destroy Somalia. But anti-colonial rumblings had started long before his birth, and being a Muslim country, it was religion which started them in 1898. Mohammed Abdullah Hassan, dubbed the Mad Mullah by the British troops, declared a jihad against the Christian invaders from Europe and Ethiopia. A master tactician, he could not be defeated. He died in the influenza epidemic of 1920, shortly after British bombers destroyed his fort at Telle. The dream of a united Somalia temporarily died with him. In August 1940, the Italians captured British Somaliland, but 7 months later, Commonwealth forces retook the territory, gaining Italian Somaliland, the Haud, and the Ogaden in the process. Most of the nation was now united, even if under the British. A regenerated mood of national awareness was soon disappointed. Once again, the Ogaden was the cause. Ernest Bevan, the British Labour Foreign Secretary,